I see this kind of fascist behaviour, I think it is my moral obligation to stand up and speak. I do not do it out of any sense of
There are
pleasure,
not one set of rules for you and one set of rules for everyone else. You will abide by the rules that everyone else does.
And you do?
Yes.
So anyhow. Right, so councillors, so what I'm proposing, and so to the members of the public, and I've had discussions with local board leaders, and I've indicated to them the best way for us to proceed in this discussion, and with this issue in particular, is to reflect on it, put it in an appropriate framework, so that we're well informed, and then with that framework we can go forward, and in particular next week. So, councillor, I don't really want to have a long discussion about it. You know, this is what I'm proposing is a way forward. You know, and if I open up this matter for discussion or debate, we'll just end up debating a matter which I would like to see us rather debate next week. So, councillors, all I'm saying is that this is my view for the way for us to go forward, and you know, that's the proposal. Right now, Councillor Quick, Councillor Dick, I don't want us to have a long discussion about this.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for first of all agreeing to entertain the delegation that you last night, and I just want to acknowledge that you know, I'm very grateful for the opportunity at the extraordinary meeting next week to discuss this in an open forum where the public will be invited. So I'm quite satisfied with that, and thank you for that, Mr. Mayor. And we look forward to a full and frank discussion on this matter in open next week.
Good. Councillor John?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. No, I just wanted to check that in the usual fashion at this extraordinary meeting that members of the public and local boards who wish to talk to the items, they will have that facility open.
Won't be an endless line, Councillor John.
But it will be available to the people.
It will, and we will keep it reasonably well succinct. This is, remember, we are only a part of the way through the process. This is about our submission. The independent panel are considering this matter, and they will give us their recommendations that we will then have a full, long, very public, open debate in July, and that's the one I'm really looking forward to. Councillor Mike?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for agreeing to seeing us last night, and also for agreeing to hold a meeting next week. I just want to take up one point. You mentioned your close collaboration with the government through this process, and that is a fact. I do, however, want to remind you of the words of the Prime Minister, who sat in this chamber a few months ago and noted that the unitary plan had already made widespread changes, and for this council to exercise further changes with caution and discretion. That was a good warning, and I think we should heed it. That's what the Prime Minister told us. In terms of due process, you have always been punctilious about due process. 20,000 Aucklanders believe they haven't had it. Hopefully we can rectify that next week. Thank you.
Okay, that's good. Right, so on that basis, I propose that we move, so I've dealt with items 7, 8, 9 and 10. I want to move to item 11. Thank you. Right, item 11, councillors, we now move into the significant issue of Regulatory and Bylaws Committee considerations. Right, now, for item 11, Councillor Denise, who had the leadership in the chair, I want to acknowledge the continuing good work of the Bylaws Committee. It may not attract the most public attention, but boy oh boy, it's certainly important for the underlying goodwill and direction of our city. So, Councillor?
I just wanted to declare a conflict of interest over 11 and 12.
Oh. We'll see you soon. Hopefully.
Actually, I will will as well.
You've got to take
Yeah.
them. Yeah, okay. All right, okay, so item 11. Now, we have got a team here. Right, we have got Mervyn, Kevin, and Paul. Excellent. Right. Okay, now I want to ask you, Denise, now let's, you will move it, and there is a seconder, Councillor Callum. Right, where you go, Denise.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It was a pleasure indeed to chair this particular hearings panel, and I'd like to thank my fellow panellists, commissioners, Councillor Filipaina, Councillor Penrose, and IMSB member Glenn Wilcox. This took place a couple of weeks ago, and we'll call it the quiet part of the season, and indeed submitters in person will call it a quiet response for this particular panel, but nonetheless we did fully traverse the issues, and I'd like to thank council staff for taking us through a very thorough process, both before, during and after the hearings, and for the way in which they handled our questions. So although submitters in attendance was, I say with a smile, sparse, we did indeed cover up some very important topics, and just to highlight some of those that fellow panellists zoned in on or honed in on. One was particularly the breakup of the $155 fee. What was that made up of? That became quite important in terms of discussion. Acknowledgement that we're actually in competition with third-party verifiers. So we're not just the only players in town in regards to this topic. Acknowledging that most fees will go down under this new proposal, and there will be a 3-year transition. Things won't bed down immediately, but we will get there step by step. Councillor Filipaina particularly led a discussion around the role of our senior health officers and acknowledging their expertise and what they bring to the table, and what fee settings should be acknowledged around their expertise. But all in all, we ended up with recommending option 1, Mr. Mayor, and we've settled on that particular option, and I therefore recommend to the rest of the governing body that they adopt the Reg and Bylaws recommendation that this be passed.
Right. Councillor Cal?
Yeah, just a quick man, Mr. Chair. Yeah, Mr. Mayor, just to back up what Councillor Crumb's saying here, this is by far one of the easiest bylaws we've had to deal with, and bear in mind there was no submitters, made life even easier. But
I used the term sparse.
Yes, but
there was no one.
It was very sparse.
But in
there
reference
was
to that,
written, just in person we're referring to.
in person I'm talking about. But in light of that, Mr. Chair, I think it's due to the fact that there's a good light at the end of the tunnel in regards to those who keep their premises to a high standard will have a reduction in their fees and charges. And I'm sure there'll be many across the region that will do that. So again, just want to acknowledge the staff and their good work on this. Extremely good work.
Cool. I like lights at the end of the tunnel. Well done. Okay, right. Officers, I have a question just on this. Can you just, well, it's more a request. Can you just forward to me your latest very small list of E and D residences, please?
Yes.
I'm presuming that it's very small.
Next item.
It is a small number. The number of E-grade premises we have at the moment is around 14, and D-grade is probably around 40, 45. So in total, around 60 D and E-grade premises we have at the moment.
Okay. Well done. Okay. Any comments or queries, councillors? No, very good. Okay, I'm going to put that recommendation. All those in favour say aye. 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 Against? Thank you very much. Right, we move on to item 12. Which is the following. Councillor Kell, you were leading this
Yep,
pack?
so, Your Worship, again, this is in line with the question you just asked a second ago in regards to the rating and the gradings of the premises.
Right.
Again, I just want to acknowledge the staff on this, and I know they've been working closely with MPI in regards to the food grading, and it's one thing that did stick out that we want to continue this process going forward in the current years ahead. It's important to the people of Auckland that we have that A, B, C and D rating, and making sure that people get up to the A grade rating.
And particularly that those who are not, that they be known.
That's correct. So
Very important.
those who slip between the cracks we need to deal with, and but the A grade rating is pretty high up there. But again, I just want to acknowledge the staff and the work on this one.
There was a time, councillors, and some of you weren't around the table of any council at that point, but I remember when I first became a councillor in Otara, Manukau, where we actually would not name and shame D and E. So they would wear a D or an E sign, but we wouldn't publish it. And my view was that was complete and total nuts. And so actually actively moving and encouraging and giving people an opportunity to know who's just not up to scratch in this most critical piece of, public health has been a great shift. Now, we've got three great people in front of us, none of you who I know the names of. So can you introduce yourselves, please?
Kia ora, Your Worship. I'm Mike Sinclair. I'm the Manager for Social Policy and Violence.
Mike, I should know you. Crow out, embarrassing.
And I will introduce to my left Emma Pilkington, who's one of the policy analysts in my team, who has been overseeing the changes to this particular bylaw, and Alan Amu, who works in the environmental health and is a key part to the actual operationalisation of the amendments to this bylaw as they come into force. Just by way of context for this, the Auckland Council introduced or adopted its own food safety bylaw in 2013. The following year, in July of 2014, the government introduced its new Food Act, which introduced a significantly different regime for the regulation of food safety across the whole of the country. That Food Act comes into force on the 1st of March this year, and there are provisions within the Act that required any councils that had food safety related bylaws to ensure that their bylaws were updated ahead of that date so that they were not inconsistent with the food safety bylaw. That is what has participated this particular project. When we actually reviewed the bylaw, most of the clauses that were contained within our bylaw were actually no longer required because they were now going to be covered by the new Food Act. So a substantial amount of the bylaw has been recommended for revocation for that reason. There are three particular components that we are recommending to be retained within the bylaw. One relating to the training of staff, because there are provisions for that within the Act, but they only come into effect in 2019. Another one in relation to food stalls, which is the same situation. So for both of those clauses, we are retaining them, but with a limited lifespan, so that they will automatically lapse at the time when the effective date of the implementation of the new Act comes into force. The third issue, which is the issue which has already been discussed or touched on, is the issue of grading. And we believe very strongly, based on the consultation that we have done with the public, with the industry and with the councillors around this table, that there is a strong commitment in Auckland for the retention of a grading system. There is provisions within the Act for a national grading system to be introduced. We have had indications that the government through MPI will not be starting to work on that project until 2019. So what we are seeking through this amendment is to ensure that there is a continuation of a grading system in Auckland during that period of time between the 1st of March when the Food Act comes into force and when a national grading system is able to be introduced. Happy to take any further questions or feedback from the panel.
Very good. Councillor Arthur.
Your Worship, you mentioned about E's and D's and naming them. Just want to remind you, back in Dawson, what we did there was blow up their A's to very big signs.
That's
and
it,
put it in the windows. And with that type of stuff that we put in the windows like that, nobody wanted to lose their A from that window. and everybody strived to meet it. So just another example of how you do it through the soft touch. Thank you.
Yeah, actually, I liked Auckland City, the old Auckland City's focus of doing a gold. I really think that we sort of lost the opportunity there to give bonus points for even more spectacular public health awareness, but that's a discussion for another day. Anything else, Councillor? Well done. Right, I'll move that recommendation. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against? Well, we have a second.
Yeah.
Come on. Right, cheers.